जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1st, Chapter 13. Dhritarashtra quits home. Text number 41. Nārada uvāca. Ma kañcana śuco rājan. Yadīśvara-vaśaṁ jagat. lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme. vahanti balim īśituḥ. saṁyunakti bhūtāni. sa-ev viyunakti ca. Nārada uvāca. Ma kañcana śuco rājan. यदीश्वरं-vaśam jagat. lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme. vahanti balim īśituḥ. saṁyunakti bhūtāni. sa-ev viyunakti ca. Nārada uvāca. Ma kañcana śuco rājan. yadīśvara-vaśam jagat. lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme. vahanti balim īśituḥ. saṁyunakti bhūtāni. sa-ev viyunakti ca. यदीश्वरवशं जगत् lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme. vahanti balim īśituḥ. saṁyunakti bhūtāni. Nārada uvāca. Ma kañcana śuco rājan. yadīśvara-vaśam jagat. lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme. vahanti balim īśituḥ. saṁyunakti bhūtāni. sa-ev viyunakti ca. Nārada uvāca. Ma kañcana śuco rājan. yadīśvara-vaśam jagat. lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme. vahanti balim īśituḥ. saṁyunakti bhūtāni. sa-ev viyunakti ca. Nārada uvāca. Ma kañcana śuco rājan. yadīśvara-vaśam jagat. lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme vahanti balim īśituḥ saṁyunakti bhūtāni sa-ev viyunakti ca. Translation, word to word meaning. Nārada uvāca. Nārada said, Ma, never. Kañcana, by all means. śucaḥ, do you lament? Rājan, O king. Yat, because. īśvara-vaśaṁ, under the control of the Supreme Lord. Jagat, world. lokāḥ, all living beings. Sapālāḥ, including their leaders. Yasyeme, whose. Ime, all these. Vahanti, do bear. Balim, means of worship. īśituḥ, for being protected. Sah, he. saṁyunakti, gets together. Bhūtāni, all living beings. Sah, he. Eva, also. Viyunakti, disperses. Cha, and. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Sri Nārada said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. Purport. Every living being, either in this material world or in the spiritual world, is under the control of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Beginning from Brahmaji, the leader of this universe, down to the insignificant ant, all are abiding by the order of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the constitutional position of the living being is subordination under the control of the Lord. The foolish living being, especially man, artificially rebels against the law of the Supreme Lord and thus becomes chastised as an asura or lawbreaker. A living being is placed in a particular position by the order of the Supreme Lord, and he is again shifted from that place by the order of the Supreme Lord or his authorized agents. Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Chandra, Maharaj Yudhishthir, or in modern history, Napoleon, Akbar, Alexander, Gandhi, Subhash, and Nehru, all are servants of the Lord, and they are placed in and removed from their respective positions by the supreme will of the Lord. None of them is independent. Even though such men and or leaders rebel so as not to recognize the supremacy of the Lord, they are put under still more rigorous laws of the material world by different miseries. Only the foolish man, therefore, says that there is no God. Maharaj Yudhishthir was being convinced of this naked truth because he was greatly overwhelmed by the sudden departure of his old uncles and aunt. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was placed in that position according to his past deeds. He had already suffered or enjoyed the benefits accrued to him in the past. But due to his good luck, somehow or other, he had a good younger brother, Vidura, and by his instruction, he left to achieve salvation by closing all accounts in the material world. Ordinarily, one cannot change the course of one's due happiness and distress by plan. Everyone has to accept them as they come under the subtle arrangement of Kala or invincible time. There is no use trying to counteract them. The best thing is, therefore, that one should endeavor to achieve salvation. And this prerogative is given only to man because of his developed condition of mental activities and intelligence. Only for man are there different Vedic instructions for attainment of salvation during the human form of existence. One who misuses this opportunity of advanced intelligence is verily condemned and put into different types of miseries, either in this present life or in the future. That is the way the Supreme controls everyone. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So I would like to seek blessings of all the Vaishnavas so that I can speak on this elevated subject of Srimad Bhagavatam. Although I am not so qualified, but as to follow the instruction, I would like to do this service for the purification of my heart and also to glorify the Supreme Lord and also for the pleasure of devotees. Hare Krishna. So, we have been discussing this beautiful pastime, this particular episode in the Srimad Bhagavatam of 13th chapter, that how Vidura, Mahatma Vidur, he returned after a long time, and we already know that he was insulted, and he went for pilgrimage for a long time, and he had association of Uddhav and later Maitreya, the sage Maitreya, and he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Maitreya, and after hearing, so basically third and fourth canto, the discussion of Maitreya, sage Maitreya to Vidura. So after hearing in third and fourth canto, so he returned back. Basically what came in third and fourth canto, he was hearing retirements of many great personalities like Kardama Muni retired, Dhruva Maharaj retired, and then retirement of Prithu Maharaj, and then Prachinabari, and then also Prachetas. So all these great personalities were retiring one by one. So he thought that this my brother Dhritarashtra, he is still holding on to his kingdom and so-called comfortable family life. When is he going to retire? So after hearing, he felt a lot of compassion for him, and he came back just so that he can deliver him. That is the only purpose he came back. And that is one great benefit of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. That one who hears sincerely, then he cannot content to himself. He wants to share what he is hearing and relishing in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what Vidura wanted to. He immediately remembered his brother and he wanted to deliver him from this entanglement of his kingdom. So he came and he was successful in his very powerful preaching, and thus they left. And here we saw in last few verses that Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was lamenting because of his uncles leaving, and amazingly Narad Muni has appeared on the scene. So Narad Muni is Trikalagya. He knows everything, about everyone and everything, because the Supreme Lord is there present in his heart. So the Supreme Lord, he makes him know whatever he needs to know at right time, place and circumstances. So that's why he could know everything. So Narad Muni appeared on the scene to give pacification, to give the instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj so that he can overcome his lamentation. So Narad Muni came, and there was a proper welcome and loving reception. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj inquired from Narad Muni that I see that my two uncles and my loving aunt, they are no more, they are not here. I don't know where they have gone, what will happen to them, and he was so much concerned. So Narad Muni gave very nice instructions in these coming verses. So today is the first verse, and also in upcoming verses, Narad Muni gave very amazing instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj, which are very important for all of us also. And so that's how is the wonderful philosophy of Krishna consciousness. It's so perfect that when it is presented by a sincere devotee like Narad Muni, it can pacify us and can give us strength to face all the various problems of our life. So we also undergo so many problems, difficulties, doubts, confusions in our life. But when we take shelter of the great sages or the senior Vaishnavas like Narad Muni, or representative of Narad Muni, then we are also pacified and we also develop courage to go on in our spiritual practices. And there are so many incidences in which we see such examples, like Arjuna. He was very much confused, terribly confused at a very important point in his life. But when he heard the instructions, the words of Krishna, he was completely pacified and he was happily, he was ready to perform his service of fighting. So that's the power of hearing the truth. We also sometimes observe in our own life that whenever we are in some kind of confusion, some kind of such situations, when we take shelter of senior Vaishnavas, or when we take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, or hear from spiritual master, then we feel that, okay, this is what I wanted to hear. I needed to hear. And that's how it helps us to go on in our devotional service. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he said once, there is no internal and external condition of life that can sidetrack us from the path of the devotional service if we are submissively hearing Krishna's words as they are coming down in the disciple succession. So that's how he said that there is nothing that can stop us if we are regularly hearing the message of Krishna coming in the succession. In fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would say, all the disturbances in the universe would be solved if people simply agreed to regularly hear Hari Katha from pure devotees. And he also said that all that is required of you is to lend your ears to me. Just lend your ears to me and then everything will be perfect. So that's how it's important. That's why every day we have to come together in the association and hear this eternal truth from Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's how will help us to go on. Because we need a lot of determination to go on fighting with our own lower tendencies and also the illusions of Maya. So when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, that will help us to go on. So now, here Narad Muni is speaking in today's verse, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. So that is very important instruction of the scriptures. Throughout the scriptures, this similar theme we observe, that everything and everyone is under the supreme control of the Lord. We are just like puppets in the hands of the Supreme. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when the Nārada boy, he was separated from his mother because of the snake bite, it was a very devastating situation for him. But he could take it as a mercy of the Lord, and that's why there it is said, Īśvara-vaśaṁ vashe loko yosha darumai yatha. So he could understand that everything is under the control of the Supreme, and we are all simply like the puppets, wooden doll in the hands of puppet master. And also here Narad Muni says that it is he only who brings them together and disperses them. Saṁyunakti, viyunakti. Other places it comes samyujjante, viyujjante. So there are many pastimes, many incidences in the scriptures. The same understanding is given by the higher personalities to the next person. So we will see some of them, like Chitraketu Maharaj in the 6th canto. He did not have son for long time. So many years he did not have any son. And after long time he got a son who was so wonderful, and he had all the very good qualities right from his birth. But what happened? He was murdered by his own stepmothers because of envy. And then Chitraketu Maharaj was completely devastated. He was completely grief-stricken. He could not walk, he could not talk, he could not rule his kingdom. He was completely in difficult situation. And at that time, and so they brought the son back to life just so that he can speak the instructions, and again he went back. So that time, Narad Muni, again the same personality, which is today is pacifying Yudhishthira Maharaj. The same Narad Muni, again, that time gave instructions to Chitraketu Maharaj, and same concept he told again of that is the verse, Yatha prayanti samyanti shroto vegena balukaha saṁyujjante viyujjante tatha kalena dehiraha. The same thing he explained him there, because he was so much aggrieved by the death of his son. So he said, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and sometimes they are separated due to the force of waves, the living entities also in this world, they sometimes come together and sometimes they are separated. That is how it is. He explained it. And again he said, Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhūtāni bhūteshu choditanisha maya. Sometimes he put seed in the ground, and sometimes it may germinate and sometimes it may not fructify. Similarly, sometimes the parents, they may be able to give birth to a child, and sometimes they may not. So everything is under the will of the Supreme. So similarly, there is nothing to lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. So Radheshyam Prabhu also tells the example. So when we make the signature on the check, so the signature does not belong to the check nor the pen, but it belongs to the person who is making the signature. Similarly, the parents, the mother, father, They are brought together by the Supreme Lord, but the child belongs to the Supreme Lord, under whose will he takes birth. So like that, there are a few more incidences that I could recollect. In Ramayana, there is a discussion of when Lord Ram, he went to Vanvas along with Mother Sita and Lakshman. So there was, and Bharat Maharaj, he was held responsible for this devastation. So Bharat Maharaj, along with entire city of Ayodhya, he went to bring Lord Ram back. And there was a beautiful conversation, this is a very, very sweet pastime, which shows the wonderful love between the two brothers. There are a lot of discussion, but so Lord Ram was pacifying Bharat Maharaj, and there also he explained the same concept to him about the separation and union of the living entities in this world. So there's one nice song. I don't know if I should sing there, but so he says that yeah, I'll sing. He says, of course, there is a verse in Ramayana, and exactly similar parallel. There is a song written on that in Marathi. It is there. So he says, "दोन ओंड कॅची होते सागरात भेट, एक लाट तोडी दोघा पुन्हा नाही गाठ. क्षणित तेवी आहे बाळा मेळ माणसाचा, पराधीन आहे जगती पुत्र मानवाचा." He says. So there is actually I wanted to see whether there is proper, but actually there is nice verse actually which is telling this. So that verse is यथा काष्ठम च काष्ठम च समेयाता महार्णवे समेत्यतुवपेयाताम कालमासाद्य kañcana. Yatha kashtam, just like the two wooden blocks, they come together because of the force of some wave in the ocean. With another wave, they are separated, never to meet again. So same way, we come across so many people in our this lifetime for some time, and again we don't know because everyone has his own journey to lead. And one more place which I could recollect, this similar discussion happened. That is with in the 10th canto, Vasudev and Nanda Maharaj, the two great fathers of Lord. So when they had their meeting, when Nanda Maharaj had gone to pay the taxes of Kamsa, after a long time he could meet Vasudev. It was after, because Vasudev was captured in the jail, it was after a long time that he could meet Vasudev, and it was like one soul, two bodies, and they were so happy to meet once again after a long time. So Nanda Maharaj said, he was thinking, why not we stay together always? And that time Vasudeva told him, Naikatra priya samvasah suhrudam chitra karmanam oghena vyuhamananam plavanam srotaso yatha. He said same thing, that many planks and sticks unable to stay together are carried away by the force of reverse waves. Similarly, although we may be intimately related with so many people, our family, friends, we are unable to stay together because of our varied past deeds and waves of time. Yes, we also give the example of train. When we are traveling by train, we make friendship with people who are fellow passengers for some time, whatever few hours of journey we have. And just by the end of our journey, we are on our own, they are on their own. Like that, we had friends in our colleges, schools, but now we don't know where, who is where, what. There is no, again, meeting. So that's how is the nature of relationships in this material world. Ultimately, relationships, they are, whenever we are here, we are separated, and ultimately, even if we are together, what happens? It stops by the passing away of those personalities. Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Vrindavan, after his retiring from family life, so there he was writing in his Vrindavan bhajan. He said, everyone has abandoned me, seeing me as penniless. Wife, relatives, friends, brothers, everyone. This is the misery, but it gives me a laugh. I sit alone and laugh. In this Maya Samsar, whom do I really love? Where have all my loving father and mother gone to now? And where are all my elders who were my own folk? Who will give me news of them? Tell me who? All that is left of this family life is a list of names. That's all. So that looks quite prominent in this material world, because this material world is temporary, and in that also it's constantly changing. Rather, change is the only constant thing that is observed in this material world. This is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It's temporary, and within that also it is constantly changing like a flux. And the human life itself is so short-lived. So its human life is compared to a bubble. In third canto, Jantu's prayers. So when Jantu is explaining, he's praying to the Supreme Lord in the womb. Jantu means our own story. We are in the womb of the mother. So there is nothing to be proud of, that we are very big something. So we are all Jantu, just small bubble. So he says, Pancharatrena Budbudam. At the fifth day, we are just a bubble. After the conception, we are on the fifth day, we are just a bubble. So that's how we are. So we don't have to be proud of our position. So every moment, that's why human life is very short-lived. Every moment is very valuable. And we are lamenting for so many things, but not about the human form of life. There was a sage, Lomas Rishi. His lifespan is very, very long. After Brahmaji's entire lifespan is over, one hair falls off his body. And when all the hairs of his body will fall, that time he will die. That much is the lifespan of this sage. When Indra personally came and offered to sponsor him a hut to stay, a cottage to stay, so he said, please do not waste your time in all these things. Time is very short. Let us practice our spiritual life. So he's thinking it is very short. Then what to speak of us? We are so short-lived, such temporary lives we have. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Emana durlabha manava deho paya ki koro bhavana ke ho ebe na bhajilo yashoda suta charame poribo laje. He says, Emana manava deho. We have attained this human form of life. Paya ki karo bhavana ke ho. But we have not valued this important gift that we have received. And we did not serve the darling of Yashoda. And slowly we are falling into the last moments of death. And further he says, Udito tapana hoilo asta dina gelo boli hoibe besta. With every setting and rising of sun, we are going closer and closer to death. That's what. But still, why do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of your heart? And this temporary life is full of miseries, he said. So the main problem that we have in this material world, that material world is temporary, is constantly changing, and as we are spirit soul, we are not products of this material world. We are products of spiritual world. We are from spiritual world. So there is a lot of incompatibility of our nature in this material world. We are trying to find permanence in this changing world, but we are not finding that. Everyone wants permanent. Now, nobody wants temporary. Everyone wants permanent job, permanent address, permanent life, permanent relationships, everything permanent that we want. Nobody wants temporary. Because that is what is the nature of soul. Sat, Chit, Ananda. By default, we are blissful, which is that bliss is permanent. The permanent that we have, and that is also permanent. So our nature is permanent, permanent. And what we are getting in this material world is temporary, niranand. So it's a lot of incompatibility that we are finding in this material world. So it's like we are 3 pin and the sockets of this material world are 2 pin. So it's not possible. So because of that, there is a lot of frustration. So all the miseries are because of this incompatibility. So we are not finding the suitable environment of this permanent thing in this world. Even though we want, the material world cannot offer that permanence. And so that's the cause of our misery. All the demons, they wanted immortal life. Like beginning with Hiranyakashipu, he wanted to live permanent life, permanent placement as a singular controller of this universe. But his life policy was torn apart by Narasimhadev. He was completely shattered and in his hopes to live forever. So there is nothing permanent. Everything is constantly changing. Srila Prabhupada said, in material world, our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-permanence. And that is why there are so many anxieties and miseries and so many fears. So there are many things that keep changing so many times in our life. So in my observation, I have found 4 things which are like very grossly we can observe that are always changing in our life. First thing is about the things in our possession. Sometimes we have something we don't have. The assets, the gadgets, the money, wealth, whatever we have. Now everyone wants latest mobile, latest laptop, latest everything. Because the company is also designed in such a way that people will want to change after a few years. They don't want to use the same thing for lifelong. Because that's how is the world designed. So money also, wealth also, somebody have, it may be gone, again it comes, goes. It's constantly changing. So that's the first thing about the things. Then second is about the relationships that we already discussed. How the relationships are also temporary. We are together sometime, then we are separated. So that is temporary. Then our activities. Work, profession, jobs, and also designations and post positions within that jobs, they are also changing. And it may be there sometimes somebody is fired from the job and somebody may get a good job. So these are constantly changing things. And for devotees also, the services may change, departments may change. So many things keep on changing in this world. And so these are the things, relationships, activities, and fourth is places. So places also keep changing. Vidyara gaurave, brahmi deshe deshe, dhana uparjana kari, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. Those who are in villages, they want to come to the cities, big cities of Mumbai, Pune, like that. Those who are in Mumbai, Pune, they want to go to America. And those who are there, they want to go to Moon, Mars, whatever. So, so it's constantly changing. They are not stable at their own place. So recently when, last time when I visited my sister's place in Shivaji Nagar, so there is a small lane, there are 16 houses, row houses in that lane. So after visiting a couple of times, I observed that all people staying there are old people. So I asked, what happened here? Then I got the answer that all these people are staying alone and all their sons, daughters, they are all in America. Nobody stays with them. They are there. They send them money, lot of money, sufficient wealth is there. But they have no one to stay together, nobody to care. So they are staying with their pets and so on. Because everyone wants to go to America or different places. So that's constantly changing. So people are traveling from place to place for many things. Sometimes people are trying to build a home so that they can be happy After retirement, they are happy. But after retirement, how much time is there? So the time is remaining is very short. And even if it's there, it is not so fruitful time. And again, one is separated from that things. So like that. So these are the things. Even from brahmacharis, so we go from temple to temple. Sometimes somebody asks, you are from which temple? So it takes some time. Which temple I am from? I am from which temple? It takes a lot of time to discuss. Oh, okay, right now I am here. Okay. It takes like that. So there is nothing like permanent address for the soul in the material world. So our permanent address is there only in the spiritual world. So whatever addresses we have, we write permanent address. That is just more permanent temporary address. That's how it is. It is not permanent address. So these four things, in my observation, these our grossly we can see they're always changing. The things, the relationships, the activities, and also places. It is easy to remember TRAP, trap. So that is a trap. We are in this material world of constantly changing things. So that's why that causes a constant fear in our heart because of lot of uncertainties, lot of surprises and challenges. So what should be done in such situation? So I like this statement very much. He said, the more we are surrounded by the things which are constantly changing in this world, the more we need to take shelter of the things which are not changing, which do not change. We have to take more shelter of the permanent things because that is where we will find shelter. When we seek our inner fulfillment and satisfaction in the core spiritual practices, in the association of devotees, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in shelter of holy name, then the external things, whether it is good and bad, the achievements or tribulations, whatever it may be, that will not matter so much. So to be able to go on steadily in our spiritual journey, we have to be grounded in the permanent things, which will not change. And that's what we see in the lives of great souls, that they are very firmly grounded in the permanent things. That's why they are able to tolerate the ups and downs in this material world, which are constantly changing. So Srila Prabhupada, he was not at all disturbed in the midst of so many calamities, so many disturbances, so many difficulties. He said, where are difficulties? Prabhupada said, I simply see opportunities to serve my spiritual master. When Prabhupada was in Jhansi, he received the message that his factory in Lucknow is plundered and there is a loss of 7 lakh rupees in 1950s that time. So it was a big loss. And what would be the reaction of Prabhupada? He simply laughed. And he continued his service. And some other time, his manuscript of Bhagavad Gita, for which he had spent so many years, was lost. And he was not to stop and shaken. Next day again he started from scratch, from beginning. He's writing the manuscript of his translation of Bhagavad Gita. So although so many difficulties were there, but he was not one to be shaken, because he was very solidly grounded to serve his spiritual master, instructions of his spiritual master, and in the shelter of the holy name. So when he had nothing and when he had everything, both the times he was the same. He was not disturbed. When Krishna gave him everything later, so he was not excited, and when Krishna took away things, that time he was not disturbed. Okay, just a few minutes. So that's a very high level that we see in the devotees of like Srila Prabhupada and all. So as a sadhaka, we should also cultivate our actual shelter in these core activities of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, then we'll find permanent shelter. And that's why whenever devotees they got darshan of the Lord, they never asked for permanent things. Like Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted a position higher than his great grandfather. But by the time the Lord appeared, he was completely purified. And then he did not ask for that. He said, give me association of your devotees, where I can relish your narrations of your pastimes. Because that is the permanent thing in this world. So holy name is permanent, Srimad Bhagavatam is permanent. These things are not going to change. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in Harinam Chintamani, there are only two things in this material world which are permanent, which are eternal. One is the soul, all of us, and the holy name. These are directly coming from the spiritual world. So Prabhupada also said, why we are chanting Hare Krishna? So that we can chant Hare Krishna more. It's not that there is going to be some other mantra or some other thing that will happen. So it's same thing we are going to do. So that's how it is permanent. So that's how we can completely take. And also the relationships in material world, that are also temporary, but they are permanent if they are taking us toward the permanence. That means, that verse is there. Saguru sapita chapi samata bandhavo pisaha shikshayeche sada smartum hare namaiva kevalam. Said he is the real guru who teaches us to take shelter of the permanent holy name. Similarly, other relationships like mother, father, and all the relationships, relatives, friends, they are also permanent if they are taking us toward the permanent shelter of the holy name. Then the relationships are also permanent in that sense. And this is how we can overcome the miseries, the fears of this material world, which is constantly changing, by taking shelter of the permanent reality, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, the holy name, and the association of devotees. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavat Mahapurana ki jai.